chosen one, you finally did it. After all the nights that felt heavier than your own breath, after all the silent battles no one ever clapped for, after standing at the edge of giving up more times than you can count, you crossed it. You reached the place they said you wouldn't, the place even you once doubted existed. And in that moment, when your feet touched the ground you once only dreamed of, something shifted, not just within you, but far beyond what your eyes could see, because this was never just about a goal, or a milestone, or a moment of personal victory. This was about alignment. This was about destiny unfolding exactly as it was always meant to. And somewhere beyond the limits of this world, something greater stirred, something ancient, something eternal, and it recognized you. It recognized the journey, the pain, the resilience, the refusal to quit when everything in your life was screaming at you to stop. You need to understand, this wasn't luck, it wasn't coincidence, it wasn't even just hard work, though you gave more of yourself than most ever would. This was purpose meeting persistence. This was the universe watching you refuse to break, even when breaking would have been easier, even when disappearing would have been quieter, even when surrender would have been understood. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You kept moving forward when every step felt like dragging your soul through fire. And now, here you are. Not because someone handed it to you, not because the path was clear, but because you carved it out with your own hands, your own will, your own belief that something more was waiting, even when you couldn't prove it. There were days you questioned everything. Days you looked at your life and wondered if you had misunderstood your calling, if maybe you weren't chosen after all, if maybe the struggle was proof that you were on the wrong path instead of the right one. And yet, even in those moments, something inside you refused to go quiet. A voice, sometimes faint, sometimes fierce, kept telling you to keep going. That voice wasn't random. That voice was guidance. That voice was truth. And you listened even when it didn't make sense, even when it led you through uncertainty instead of clarity. People saw parts of your journey, but they didn't see all of it. They saw moments of effort, but they didn't see the emotional weight behind it. They saw movement, but they didn't see the internal war that movement required. They didn't see the nights you lay awake questioning your worth, your direction, your strength. They didn't see how close you came to walking away. And maybe that's why this moment hits differently, because you know what it cost. You know what you had to become in order to arrive here. You know how many versions of yourself you had to shed, how many fears you had to face, how many excuses you had to outgrow. And that's why, when it finally happened, when everything aligned, when the breakthrough came, when the door opened, you didn't just feel relief, you felt something deeper, something almost indescribable. A recognition, like stepping into a place your soul had already been before, like arriving somewhere that had always been waiting for you. And in that moment, something else happened too, something unseen yet undeniable. Heaven didn't just notice, heaven responded, not with noise, not with spectacle, but with a resonance, a quiet, powerful acknowledgement that you had fulfilled something significant, because you weren't just chasing success, you were answering a call that required endurance, patience, faith, and an unshakable willingness to keep going when there was no guarantee of reward. And now that you've answered it, now that you've proven that you are who you were meant to be, everything changes, not just around you, but within you. You don't move the same, you don't think the same, you don't see the world the same way, because you've touched something real, something earned, something that can never be taken away from you. This moment is not the end of your journey, it's the confirmation of it. It's the moment where everything you went through begins to make sense, where every delay, every setback, every rejection reveals itself not as an obstacle but as preparation. You weren't being denied, you were being developed. You weren't being pushed back, you were being positioned. And now that you've arrived, you can see it, you can feel it, you can understand it in a way you never could before. There's a reason it took this long, a reason it didn't happen sooner, because the version of you that exists now is the version that was capable of holding this moment without losing it, without wasting it, without being destroyed by it. Growth was never optional, it was required, and you embraced it, even when it hurt, even when it demanded more from you than you thought you had to give. And now look at you, standing in a reality that once felt impossible, breathing in a moment you once only imagined, living proof that persistence is more powerful than doubt, that faith, even when fragile, can carry you further than certainty ever could. You did this, not perfectly, not easily, but undeniably, and somewhere beyond what you can see, there is a celebration, not loud, not chaotic, but profound. A recognition of your journey, your endurance, your transformation, because becoming who you were meant to be was never going to be easy. It was always going to require everything, and you gave it. You gave your time, your energy, your belief, your strength. You gave parts of yourself that no one else will ever fully understand. But now, you don't need them to understand, because you know, you feel it, you live it. This is what it means to be chosen. Not that the path is easier, but that it matters more. Not that you are spared struggle, but that your struggle has purpose. And now, standing here, you are no longer questioning whether you are capable. You are no longer wondering if you will make it, because you already have. And the most powerful part, this is only the beginning. The idea that chosen ones are forged through struggle rather than comfort speaks to a truth that is often overlooked when people look at success from the outside. What is seen is the result, the achievement, the moment of arrival. But what is rarely understood is the long, exhausting process that shaped the person capable of reaching that point. The journey is never gentle for those who are meant for something greater. It is marked by uncertainty, emotional weight, and periods where everything familiar begins to fall apart. Doubt becomes a constant companion, not because the path is wrong, but because growth always demands that you step into places where certainty cannot follow. Pain is not just an obstacle, it becomes part of the process, reshaping how you think, how you feel, and how you respond to life itself. There are moments where surrender feels logical, even necessary, because continuing forward seems to require more strength than what you believe you have left. Yet it is in those exact moments that something deeper begins to reveal itself within you. Something that refuses to fully give up, even when everything external suggests that quitting would bring relief. What separates the chosen ones from those who stop along the way is not the absence of struggle, but the response to it. Struggle does not discriminate, it arrives for everyone, but only a few are able to transform it into fuel instead of defeat. Being chosen is not about receiving an easier path, but about developing an unexplainable endurance that carries you through paths that break others. It is the ability to continue walking when clarity disappears, when results are delayed, and when silence replaces reassurance. In those seasons, motivation alone is not enough. It becomes something deeper, something rooted in purpose, even when purpose itself feels distant. The weight of every setback, every disappointment, and every unanswered prayer does not destroy the chosen ones, it reshapes them. It teaches patience in its harshest form and builds strength in places that comfort could never reach. Over time, the struggle stops being just something endured and becomes something that defines direction, sharpening identity and revealing resilience that could not have been discovered in ease. And so when people later look at the outcome, they often misunderstand it as luck or timing. But timing is only the surface. Beneath it lies years of invisible battles fought in silence, decisions made in uncertainty, and movement continued without guarantees. The chosen path is not glamorous while it is being walked. It is often lonely, often confusing, and often heavy in ways that cannot be easily expressed. Yet every step taken in that space of struggle builds a foundation strong enough to hold the weight of what eventually arrives. Comfort does not create strength, it preserves it. Struggle, however, produces it. And that is why those who are chosen are not defined by how easy their journey is, but by how relentlessly they continue when nothing about the journey feels easy at all. Persistence aligned with purpose creates destiny in a way that cannot be replicated by talent alone or by moments of temporary motivation. When a person is connected to something deeper than surface-level ambition, their actions begin to carry a different weight. They are no longer simply reacting to circumstances or chasing quick outcomes. Instead, they are moving with a sense of direction that remains steady even when everything around them feels uncertain. This kind of persistence is not loud or always visible. It often looks like quiet consistency, showing up again and again without guarantees, without applause, and sometimes without any sign that progress is being made at all. Yet it is precisely in that unseen consistency that destiny begins to take shape. Success in this context is never the result of chance. Chance is unstable, unpredictable, and fleeting. What lasts is built through intention combined with endurance. There are moments along the journey where evidence of progress disappears completely, where effort feels disconnected from reward, and where doubt begins to question whether the path itself is even real. These are the moments that test whether purpose is genuine or temporary, when there is no immediate reward, no validation, and no external confirmation. Only something rooted deeper can keep a person moving forward. That deeper force is purpose, and when it is strong enough, it becomes the anchor that holds persistence in place. Staying committed to a deeper calling requires a kind of discipline that cannot be sustained by emotion alone. Motivation rises and falls, but purpose remains steady beneath it all. It is what keeps a person moving when logic suggests stopping, when results are delayed beyond expectation, and when the outcome is still invisible. In those seasons, every step forward feels like a decision made in faith rather than certainty. And yet it is precisely those faith-driven steps that accumulate over time into something undeniable. What once looked like randomness begins to reveal a pattern. What once felt like struggle begins to show structure, and what once seemed like waiting begins to transform into preparation. There is also a silent transformation that happens during this process. As persistence continues without immediate reward, the individual begins to change internally. Patience becomes stronger, resilience becomes natural, and dependence on external validation slowly weakens. The journey stops being about proving something to others and becomes about fulfilling something within. This shift is essential because destiny is not just about reaching a destination. It is about becoming the kind of person capable of holding that destination once it arrives. Over time, what once felt like effort begins to feel like alignment. Actions that were once difficult become instinctive. The path that once seemed uncertain begins to reveal itself as intentional all along. And when success finally arrives, it does not feel like an accident or a surprise. It feels like arrival, like something that was always moving toward you just as much as you were moving toward it. That is the result of persistence aligned with purpose. It doesn't chase destiny. It builds it step by step until there is no separation between where you were going and who you were becoming. The unseen battles matter the most because they are where the real shaping happens, far away from applause, recognition, or any external validation. What people usually notice is the outcome, the success, the breakthrough, the moment everything finally comes together. But what they don't see is the long stretch of time where nothing seems to be working, yet everything inside a person is being rebuilt piece by piece. The real victory is never only what is achieved on the outside, it is what is survived on the inside. It is the internal war that no one witnesses, where doubt speaks louder than confidence, where exhaustion becomes a constant state, and where silence often feels heavier than failure itself. There are nights when everything slows down, and the mind becomes the loudest place in existence. In those moments, doubt doesn't just appear, it settles in. It questions every decision, every step taken, every belief held about the future. It makes even the strongest intentions feel uncertain. And yet, despite that internal noise, something within continues to hold on. Not because it is easy, but because letting go feels like denying something deeply embedded in the soul. Those nights of doubt are not wasted time. They are silent shaping periods where endurance is tested in its purest form. No one sees them, but they become the foundation of everything that follows. Alongside doubt comes emotional weight, the kind that is difficult to explain to others. It is not always tied to one specific event, but rather accumulates over time. Delays, setbacks, expectations, disappointments, and the pressure of continuing forward without clarity. This weight does not always break a person immediately. Instead, it teaches them how to carry more than they thought they could. It stretches patience, deepens understanding, and slowly builds a kind of strength that cannot be learnt in comfort. Even when everything feels overwhelming, there is often a quiet decision made internally to continue anyway, even without certainty or reassurance. Silent resilience is what holds everything together during these unseen battles. It is not loud or dramatic. It does not always feel like strength in the moment. Sometimes it simply looks like getting through another day, or choosing to try again after disappointment, or continuing forward without any guarantee that things will improve. But over time, these small acts of persistence accumulate into something powerful. They form a foundation that cannot be easily shaken because it was built in isolation, tested in silence, and strengthened through repetition. When the moment of success finally arrives, it carries all of that hidden history within it. The external victory is only the surface expression of a much deeper internal transformation. Without those unseen battles, the outcome would not have the same meaning, because it is those private struggles that truly build the capacity to reach and sustain it. In the end, what was achieved outside was only possible because of what was endured within. Delays were preparation, not rejection, even when they felt like silence stretching longer than you could understand. In the moment, it often seems like life is holding back what you've worked for, as if something is being taken away or denied. But what is actually happening is far less visible and far more important. You are being shaped in ways that only time can accomplish. What feels like a pause is often construction happening beneath the surface, building strength, patience, awareness, and emotional stability that success alone could never teach you. Every setback arrives disguised as interruption, but its role is rarely what it appears to be. It forces reflection when movement would have been easier. It slows momentum so lessons can sink deeper instead of being rushed past. It exposes weaknesses that comfort would have hidden and demands growth in areas you might never have chosen to develop on your own. At the time, these experiences feel like resistance, like something working against you, but in reality they are refining you, stripping away what cannot survive the weight of what you are moving toward. Obstacles are often misunderstood as barriers meant to stop progress, but for those who endure them, they become filters instead. They remove impatience, they challenge ego, they break illusions of control, and they replace them with something far more stable. Each difficulty tests not only your ability to continue, but your ability to remain grounded while continuing. Because reaching success is one thing, but handling it without losing yourself is something entirely different. And that is where preparation truly happens. There are moments when timing feels unfair, when what you want seems just out of reach despite your effort. But effort alone is not the only thing being measured. Capacity is being expanded quietly. Emotional endurance is being built in silence. Perspective is being widened so that when the moment finally arrives, it does not overwhelm you or consume you. Without this preparation, success can become unstable, even destructive, because it arrives without the internal structure needed to support it. That is why delays are not punishments. They are protections in disguise. What looks like being held back is often being held together. You are being guided into alignment with a version of yourself that can carry what you are asking for, not just receive it but sustain it, not just experience it but understand it. And this transformation cannot be rushed, because what is being developed inside you is not surface level, it is foundational. So when the waiting felt endless, it was not absence of progress. It was progress in its deepest form, happening in places no one could see. And when the moment finally comes, it doesn't arrive as something sudden or accidental. It arrives as recognition, a realization that every delay, every obstacle, every detour was not pulling you away from your path, but preparing you to finally walk it without breaking under the weight of what you were meant to receive. This achievement is confirmation, not the finish line, even if it feels like a peak after a long climb. What you've reached is not a final destination where everything stops. It is a clear signal that the direction you've been walking in was never random. It is proof that the effort, the endurance, and the choices made in uncertainty were not wasted. In moments like this, it becomes easier to see that progress was happening even when it didn't feel obvious, even when results were delayed, even when doubt tried to rewrite your direction. Reaching this point carries a deeper meaning than just success itself. It reflects alignment between who you are becoming and what you are working toward. Many people mistake arrival for completion, but true growth doesn't end when one goal is achieved. Instead, it expands. Each milestone reveals more of what is possible, not less. It shows that the limits you once believed in were not permanent, but temporary boundaries that could be crossed through persistence and belief held over time. This moment is not closing your journey, it is validating it. There is something powerful about realizing that you were capable of this all along, even when circumstances didn't reflect it. The path didn't suddenly become easier. You became stronger within it. That strength is what brought you here, and it is also what will carry you forward. What once felt like a distant possibility has now become evidence of what you can actually accomplish. And with that evidence comes responsibility, not pressure, but awareness. Awareness that you are not operating at your limit. You are only at your current level of expansion. This is why the idea of finish line does not apply here. A finish line suggests an ending, a place where effort stops and everything concludes, but real growth does not function in endings, it functions in evolution. Every achievement expands your capacity for what comes next. It reshapes your understanding of what is possible, and quietly raises the standard for what you will pursue in the future. What once felt like a huge goal eventually becomes a foundation for something even greater. There is also a shift that happens internally at this stage. Confidence is no longer based on hope alone, but on experience. You begin to trust your ability not because you believe in outcomes, but because you have already lived through the process that produces them. That kind of understanding cannot be easily shaken, because it is built on proof, not assumption. And that proof becomes the grounding force for everything that follows. So this moment is not the end of movement. It is confirmation that your movement has been meaningful. It is a checkpoint that says you are capable, aligned, and progressing in the right direction. What lies ahead is not repetition of the past, but expansion of what has already been proven possible. And in that expansion, the journey continues, not because you are still trying to arrive somewhere, but because you are now fully aware that you are already on the path that leads further than you once imagined.